everyone. We should be live now. I just need to check on YouTube to see if everything's good. Yeah, looks like we are live. Ooh. Looks like we are live and good. If you can see me and hear me well, please do let me know in the chat. I am so excited about getting to spend the next hour on this Saturday together. I already see Robert has commented, which is incredible. I'm so excited, and thank you for coming again, Robert. Hi, Kautar. How are you doing? Amazing. Good. The audience can see. Awesome. So let me know where you guys are based and how everything's going. I'm so excited to see everyone. I am currently in my Berlin apartment. Um, Super excited about today. Hi, Lukumano. So nice to see you here from Finland, right next door. Hey, Martin, how are you doing? I haven't heard from you for a while. Thank you for tuning in. I always love this part. It's always so exciting to see everyone that I interact with on LinkedIn and everything. Um, hey, Vernon, how are you doing? Thank you for coming. Oh, I see someone from Lawyer Up. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Someone from Morocco is here who always attends my webinar. I love you. Also, hey, Gregory, how are you doing? Thank you for tuning in and posting about the event. That's incredible. Yeah, I'll give it another minute or two and then we'll start with the webinar. Someone here's from New York City. Hi, Oscar. So nice to see you. I saw you posted about the event on Instagram. Thank you. A love from Berlin to India. Thank you for coming. Awesome. It's hey Jeremy, so nice to see you here. I haven't had a solo webinar since April, I think. And it's so weird not to have a guest over, but I'm really excited about the fact that I get to sit down with everyone and just hear about what you're struggling with, how I can help, because this is why I'm here. I'm here to support and help as much as possible. So I'm really excited about this. But yeah, I'm excited to have a more interactive session. That's my main goal. So I want to make sure you guys are speaking up. If there's something that you don't understand, you let me know. Always here to support. So we'll use this hour or so to really get you kickstarted on your personal brand and get rolling. Hey Simran, thank you so much for coming. Hi everyone from Canada, I see. Also from India as well. Amazing. So excited about today. I'll keep mentioning it until it's over, but I'm so happy to be here with everybody. But yeah, well, let's get kick-started because it's almost 3 minutes into the time. But yeah, it's been a really rough year, to put it simply. Things have been really rocky for everyone, and personally, I've been in a bit of a rut, to be honest. Things have not been easy in general with this year, and that's completely fine. It's okay to not be okay, but I wanted to hear from you. How are you feeling? What are you struggling with? Just this year, I got an eviction notice. I got my job postponed. Things were turned upside down for me completely. Um, just to put that simply, I'm a bit concerned about what the rest of the year is going to look like. We still have 4 months. But let me know in the comments, how are you feeling? What is something that you've been struggling with? Because we can address it together in the webinar. Yeah, someone said in the comments 2020 sucks. 100%. Like, for everyone, I think everyone's been in a bit of a rut. But, you know, we'll get through this together. That's the most important bit. And the reason I'm mentioning um, everything, because throughout my life, whenever something's been wrong, if my job got postponed, if I didn't have a network to fall back on, all these different things, my personal brand has been the only thing that's been my saving grace very consistently. When I had no network, when I started my job search, my personal brand saved me. When I needed to start my business and things weren't going very well, my personal brand saved me. And, I come from a background where I didn't have a network, I didn't have any resources, I didn't know how to even approach my job search or approach networking or do anything really. And the thing that has consistently helped me has been my personal brand. And that's why I'm here today to share the love and really use this resource, this incredible thing that you can use for yourself to get us through this year together. So, if there is a particular topic that you are currently struggling with, if it's networking, if it's getting your application noticed, if it's any of these different things, let me know in the comments. I'm staying and listening and reading, and we'll cater the session as well to that. But I see a lot of people are saying, I'm struggling to find a job. Law school applications got screwed up. Unfortunately, there's so many circumstances like this. I'm so sorry to hear about that. But I'm hoping the session today will get us all through that. And today we'll actually talk about what is a personal brand? How do you create a personal brand, essentially? How do you go about content creation? How can you craft your personal brand through content? And most importantly, how to make opportunities for yourself through your personal brand. So we'll talk a bit about my story. We'll talk about how I started 2 years ago from zero communities, zero resources until today, 2 years later. And we'll actually go through the steps and actionable tips on how to build a personal brand. Because, a lot of people, even on these webinars that I'll go on, will all be like, yeah, personal branding is amazing. It's the best thing you can do for yourself. But what actually is a personal brand, to put it for first and foremost, right? But things that we will discuss 100%, and I'm really excited. And thank you for tuning in. Thank you for coming and supporting. I love you guys so much. And even though 2020 has been awful, you have, along with my personal brand, been my saving grace. I love this community so much. You give me such fulfillment and happiness. So let's get it kickstarted, right? But the one thing I wanted to mention before we do start is I am partnering with this organization that it's essentially data science for all. It's created by an organization called Correlation for One. And essentially, what they do is they give accessibility to data science courses from teams at MIT and Harvard. And through those data fluency courses, they then kind of like get you jobs at big tech companies or any industry that has data science jobs, or throughout a number of industries actually. So you get data fluency courses for free and you get connected with jobs. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to mention that if you are struggling in getting a job and you want to explore data science and want to resort to getting a data science certification for free, and also get hooked with a job, this is for you. I'm also putting the link in the comments for you to see, but I really, really encourage you to apply, and especially if you are a minority group. So if you're a first generation student, if you're a veteran, if anything like that, that you think that you are a minority group that represents you, then go ahead and apply. It's such an incredible opportunity, and I really encourage you to apply. But just to get started, let's go. So, what is a personal brand, first and foremost? Because this is essentially the big question I always get. And when I was an intern at Intel, all the time they would say, you need a personal brand. It's super important when you're networking. It's super important when you're speaking to people. It's so important for you to have a personal brand. But I had no idea what a personal brand was or what it was supposed to represent, what value I even had to give with a personal brand and all of that. So That's something we will be discussing. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you think a personal brand is? What is your assumption of what a personal brand, or what is it from your perspective? Because a lot of people always have different perspectives on this. But essentially, what I want you to think about with a personal brand, let me know in the comments what you think it is. But a personal brand is like when you think of Google, you think about, oh, they build this specific product, they have these specific values, they have this specific mission. Um, Essentially, when you're thinking of their brand, you're thinking about everything they represent and they like put out into the world, right? And it's a number of things because it's a huge company, but whatever you think of anything specifically, even a celebrity per se or an influencer, you always can categorize them into different things. So, like their personality, their image, what they represent as well, maybe specific work that they do, etc. And I see a few comments already about what people think a personal brand is your USP, your unique selling proposition. That is very true. Your professional image, um, and Atzer asked, is it having your name associated with a specific product or business? Or is it a name easier to identify for a service? Actually, it's just who you are, like I was mentioning. It doesn't have anything to do with your work because I'm a big believer in your work does not represent who you are. It's just a matter of who you are. So, like I said, when you think of a celebrity, their personality pops up, their work, their specific style of doing things, all of that. But I also like how Couture mentioned it. She said the image that others have in mind when someone mentions you. I really like that because that's exactly how it is. When people are speaking about you, when you're not in the room or when you are not present, what are they mentioning? What are the things that they are saying? David's also saying what makes you unique and how you set yourself apart. Also love that. Community, you don't even need me. You already know what a personal brand is. Love that. But essentially, my personal brand formula is your story, your talents, and your purpose in life, essentially. But when I mention these things when I hold workshops and stuff, everyone's always like, but Basant, I don't have a story or talents or purpose. And when I first started out, I thought so as well. I thought I didn't have anything that actually distinguishes me from other people or makes me different or anything like that. But we all have a story, we all have talents, and we all have a purpose of why we are here. Right? So that's the first thing I kind of want you to take away from this workshop, right? Is we all have value to give. It's just a matter of tapping into it and finding it out, most importantly. And I'll walk you through how exactly I started. So when I started posting on LinkedIn and I was starting to figure out, like, who am I actually? What do I want to do? What is it that I'm here to do? It was a process, right? And that's what I want you to keep in mind. When you're developing content, when you're making a personal brand or something of that nature, it is a process of learning and evolving because you're never going to stay stagnant as a person. You're never going to stay static or unchanging, right? You're always going to be developing and your personal brand is going to develop with you. So, just as something that I think is really funny, when I first started building my personal brand, I built it around books and book reviews and the fact that I really like reading and reading about specifically like business development and career development and all these different things. So that's how I started. I didn't know what I wanted to talk about, so I just started writing about books and building my brand about that. And then slowly I started thinking about things I did in high school. Even I was in college at the time, but I couldn't think of anything in college I did that was different. So I started writing about my story in high school, and I was thinking about, like, in high school, what was really differentiating of me, what made me different. I did this, I participated in this event, I did this differently. And I started thinking about, like, okay, these are small fragments of my story, right? This is a small part of who I am. And I think as you slowly start to develop your brand and you think about, like, what do I represent? You'll slowly get to that. It's not like a small like thing like, oh, what's my personal brand? And it pops in your head, right? It's like a process. So I first started writing about small things that were part of my daily life. And then I slowly understood that my story is about my adversities and how I am continuously persevering. And that was my story. It was the fact that I was getting rejected left and right, right, from different jobs. The growth I was experiencing from that. I was really highlighting my soft and hard skills to employers because I was showcasing my story, what made me me. And the funny bit is a lot of people always say my story is nothing remarkable. I've not accomplished anything. I've not done anything. I haven't changed anything. And if this gives you any comfort and consolidation, is my story has to do with how much I have failed, how much I have completely like gotten rejected from a number of companies, and how I continuously stand up based on that, right? And that's my story. I think a lot of people don't think their adversity and the things that they are going through are part of their story. They just want to highlight the positives. They just want to highlight, this is me. This is what I've accomplished. This is what I've done. But I went up there and I was like, perseverance is my story. That's who I am. That's what I stand for. And that's what employers thought about me because they've continuously read about my story. They've read about all of that. And yeah, that's a huge part of it. But I see in the comments, people are saying rejection is something I'm still scared of, to be honest. And failure is one of my biggest fears. I totally understand. 2020, I felt like the biggest imposter in the entire world. And failure has been really scary to me because I let these problems and these kind of circumstances really consume me and make me think that I am not good enough. But the truth is, adversity is a huge part of it. And I think that if you stay in your comfort zone and if you stay in your little bubble, there's so much out there you're not experiencing and so much out there that you are not getting, like, finding, because you're scared of that failure. It's a part of the process, and it's just a matter of standing up after you fall, right? So I hope that's a bit helpful in terms of that. But I just looked at what made me different. um and no one at that time was speaking about failure and rejection so openly, not even just on LinkedIn, but even in conversations, right? Because your personal brand isn't just online, it's when you are speaking to people. And I just noticed no one was speaking about failure, no one was speaking about rejection. And I made that my niche. I made that what I represent and make people think about when they think of me, right? So it's also a matter of thinking about, like, what is my niche? What is it that makes me different? And I think a lot of people on LinkedIn now speak about rejection, which is incredible. But if 50 people are speaking about rejection, what can you do that is different? What part of your story makes you different? Are you an international student who's struggling? Are you apart from your family and you found ways to build a community? You found ways to build community and build this huge space for other people. It doesn't also have to be completely like career driven. I speak about me comparing myself and all kinds of other topics that are part of my story, right? So think big, think differently, and that's your story essentially. But just to move on so we continue, is the next part is your talent. So in terms of your personal brand, it's very important to be very aware of what you bring to the table. Right. And again, I was just there like, I'm not very talented on anything, but I thought about what is it that I'm good at that a lot of people have mentioned to me before. So, or what even I'm good at that I noticed I am good at. So I noticed, okay, I'm really creative. I've always enjoyed being creative and really putting stuff out there. And let me know in the comments, what is your talent? I would love to read about it, and maybe we can also brainstorm together what you think your talent is and how you feel about that, especially if you don't know exactly what it is yet. But I would also remember that people in my workplace, wherever I worked, would always tell me that I'm a really good listener. So it's important to think about, okay, this is what I'm good at, but this is what other people have also been telling me that I'm really good at as well. So use those puzzle pieces and put them together to kind of figure out, okay, this is kind of like my soft skill and talents. And I think that also helps you essentially in crafting also what your USP, which was mentioned in the comments before, what your unique selling proposition is when you're applying to jobs. What is it that is your niche and really makes you stand out? But let me know what your talents are. I would love to read about them in the comments right now. But the last bit that's kind of your personal brand is what your purpose is essentially. And this is a huge thing, especially when you're younger. What is my purpose? What am I here to do? Um, I noticed that I want to be there for minority groups. I want to help minority groups who are less resourceful, and all of that. Um, so it's super important to think about like what your purpose is, and it doesn't have to be this huge outline of this is exactly what I want to be or this is exactly who I am or all. It's just a matter of thinking, okay, in 10 years perhaps, if you're accepting an award at insert award here, what do you want the person who is presenting you to mention? What do you want people to say about you in terms of soft and hard skills? What do, are they helpful? Do they want people to mention that you did certain community work, that you did something creative at a specific job? That already kind of outlines your purpose. And it's very important. Let me just go at the personal brand part, but this is very important. It's very important that when you are crafting a personal brand, that you are consistent with it. Because let's say you are a data scientist, right? And that's your thing. And you've built a story around that. You've built a whole kind of personal brand about this is who I am. And then the next day, you speak about another passion of yours, which is cooking. And then the next day, you speak about something else, especially if you want to build an audience or build a network essentially around your personal brand. You need to be consistent with who you are just so it makes sense for the person you are speaking to and kind of highlighting, right? So think about like what do you want to encompass in the next few years as part of your career, and this is that. And the reason a personal brand is so incredibly helpful is when people were seeing, like, just as an example, when I was applying to LinkedIn and I was showcasing my personal brand, when I was speaking to people, when I was at events, when I was creating content, they had a good understanding of my story, my talents, my purpose in life, and it perfectly fit what the job was looking for, right? They wanted someone who was persistent, they wanted a good listener for sales, and they wanted someone who helps people with economical opportunity. So it all fit like in a nice bow. So think about like what do you want to showcase specifically also towards your goals, right? So I hope that makes sense in terms of the formula. And I see Simran says it's a perfect constitute of creating a personal brand. So I'm happy to hear that, Simran. Thank you for your feedback. And yeah, that's is that. And before we move on, I wanted to take a few minutes to answer some questions about personal branding based on what I just said in terms of the formula and what I mentioned in terms of storytelling. So, is anyone struggling perhaps with understanding who they are, what their purpose is? Write down a question and then write down the question so I can see it. And then we can discuss a bit about personal branding and whatnot. But essentially, the nice thing about a personal brand is because I was so consistent and because I was sharing who I was every bit of the way, people come to you with opportunities. So, and also, you really stand out from the crowd with all these immense amounts of applications, right? So, I'm seeing a lot of people mention, like, I don't know how to stand out on my resume, I don't know how to stand out in interviewing. And we'll speak a bit about this at the end of the webinar, essentially, but this is your way of really, really standing out from the crowd through having a personal brand and through establishing a niche and essentially having people along the way with you. But let me see. Let me see if anyone left any questions. Zoya just left a question. What if you failed in ways that can traditionally hurt a personal brand? How do you move forward from that? That is a really, really good question. I think it's just a matter of keeping it professional, right? So, I have some really bad days. where I've done like, very airheaded things, or that's a very small example, of course. But just things like that where I don't share them publicly because, it's not a professional forum. But for example, um, getting rejected is a huge part of life that everyone experiences, for example. Small amounts of failure are also a huge part of life. It's normal. So I would think about those instances rather than essentially really things that would hurt you, because I want you to think about, like, will this post or would this essential story hurt me, or will it showcase my soft skills and hard skills? And also what I want you to think about is it's also a matter of mindset. So whenever I post about my failure or my rejection, it's never from a place of, life sucks, 2020 is horrible, etc. No, it's from a place of positivity. So, yes, today is not a good day. Tomorrow looks like it's not going to be a good day either. However, we will persevere and we will get out of this. So, it's also about showcasing a positive mindset, right? I hope I answered your question. So, yeah, let's see. I think there's another question. What if you have tons of other interests beside your skills and talents? Can you talk about other things you like beside things related to your specific career? Very good question. I personally think it's just important to kind of narrow it down again. It's kind of like I was talking about. You want to have a consistent personal brand and story all throughout that doesn't kind of go back and forth, right? Um, so I would keep it career specific. So if you want to write on LinkedIn, for example, I would keep it a bit niche and specific to a few other things. It's incredible that you have other interests as well, but I'm sure it kind of will be hard to translate into a career specific story or career specific kind of content, for example. But yeah, I'm glad we got some time in to answer some questions. And Paula was just mentioning I've been struggling with inspiration on creating content lately. So, it's very important that you share value with other people. And we'll speak about exactly how to do that in terms of your content in a second. But, if you're struggling with content ideas, maybe share your learnings from today on LinkedIn and leave the webinar link just so other people can also learn. And you're also sending value to other people, right? But a lot of people always ask me, I don't know what to post about. Once someone even knows like what their personal brand is, they're like, I don't know what to post. It's really difficult. And it definitely is. So I actually started content creation 2 years ago, actually 2018 in August. So this is like my anniversary on LinkedIn for 2 years. And essentially, kind of like what I was hinting at the beginning, I was posting about the books I was reading, kind of events I was attending as well. And then slowly I shifted into storytelling. So I started writing about things I did in high school. So I like ran for treasury at my student council, for example. So I posted about that. Um, I was just looking for inspiration from everywhere. So every time I would learn something, I would post about it. If I attended a conference, I would post about what I learned at that specific conference, even if it wasn't from a conference perspective, like in the marketing conference. But I would post about, okay, I met this person, I learned about networking. Let me post about the small networking tip that I just noticed. But your content essentially needs to evolve with you. And before we even spoke about this content formula, I want you to think about your goals. So when you're creating content, it shouldn't be without a goal in mind. So I'll speak to a lot of students and they'll mention my student audience is really big. Everyone I'm networking with is a student, but I'm looking for a job, right? That's what I'm looking for. Then you need to cater your content to other people who can get you a job, right? Not to other students. So you need to think about content in that way and write content for that audience. So when I was job searching, I started speaking about my soft skills, my story, things I was really struggling with, and then writing about that and showcasing those soft and hard skills. So when an employer was looking at my content, they would say, "Oh, she's a perfect fit. We should talk to her." And it's not really about the amount of people who are looking at your content, right? I remember at the beginning, I had 5 to 6 people look at my content pieces. Seriously, it was a very small amount, but they were the right people, recruiters, hiring managers, because that's who I was networking with and thinking about with my goal. But if you are targeting students, maybe you're part of a university club, maybe you are trying to recruit students to a specific cause or something of that nature, then be my guest, right, for students. But it needs to be value driven and it needs to be consistent towards your specific goal, right? So we need to be intentional here. When you have a personal brand, it needs to always be intentional and think about, okay, does this piece of content fit my personal brand? Does this work together with my personal brand? And also, does this fit what my audience is looking for, what my audience needs? So think about these small things when you're crafting your content, and that helps narrow down particularly what you should write about as well, which I think was a concern in the comments a few minutes ago. But people always say it needs to be valuable content and it needs to be consistent. So, what is something you struggle with the most, community? Is it the value part or is the consistency part? Let me know in the comments, and we can focus on whatever one has the most demand. But I think what I struggled the most with was value a few years ago. I didn't understand particularly what I was good at or what I needed to do moving forward or any of these things, right? So that's something we'll discuss today. What value do you have? But remember the formula I gave you at the beginning of this webinar. We said it's about your talent, it's about your story, and it's about your purpose. And that's already a few writing topics that you can think about. So, for example, when it comes to my purpose, I wanted to help other people be more resourceful. So I thought about, okay, maybe I should write about these tips I'm learning because I want to help people also um, work well in the job search in general, the process, right? Or go like that. And it doesn't have to be huge amounts of value, right? I was writing book reviews on LinkedIn, I was writing all kinds of things. But the value specific part is different, also dependent on platforms. So a lot of people are always saying now to me, I need to write on LinkedIn. How do I start writing on LinkedIn? I'm like, why write on LinkedIn? If you're also a really good person on camera, why don't you consider YouTube instead and then post your pieces of content on LinkedIn somehow? Again, it depends on your goals and it depends on what you're trying to do. So even GitHub, I feel, could be such a great resource if you're tech specific because you can showcase projects, hard skills and soft skills on GitHub where people of the relevant industry would find you. So think about things that way. LinkedIn is not always the answer, but it is the answer if you're looking for a job most of the time. But the value needs to be specific to what goal you have, what platform, and what audience you have. And again, it's a process. You're growing as like through this year we've all grown a lot, I'm sure. Um but it's just a matter of showcasing that. So I started with book reviews. I built up to speaking about things on high school, like things I did in high school. Then I worked up to small things I was doing in college and what I was learning as I was starting my job search. Okay, I went to this conference. This is what I learned. I spoke to this person. This is what I learned. And then slowly I moved into my adversities, my problems. And I think from until I started speaking about adversities, it took me 6 months to build up the courage to start sharing that specific value. So it's a process. And I see Edsir said, the growth was painful though. Yes, it is. And growing a community and growing a network is really difficult, and building content is also very difficult. But it's just a process of also understanding what value you have to give. But what I want you to leave here with is you do have value. It's just a matter of exploring it and slowly building up a better understanding of who you are, because this is also a process of self discovery, I always like to say. So it's just a matter of understanding, okay, this is the value I have to give. This is what I'm better at. This is what my audience also really likes, and getting feedback through that. Um, and yeah, and I see a lot of people in the comments saying consistency on LinkedIn's really hard. I suffer from imposter syndrome. What do you feel your posts are showing you are just a newbie like 1,000 other people. You know, I totally understand. When I was starting, and when I read my content from 2 years ago, it's really not very good. But if you keep thinking to yourself, I'm an imposter, I'm not good enough to be here, you're already putting your mindset into thinking of, oh, I'm really not good enough to post content. I'm not good enough to be consistent, or I have not enough value to give to even be here against all these 1,000 people, right? But if you keep yourself in your mindset, you're going to be the same as everyone else. Unfortunately, I see this also when I'm working with my clients on resumes and interviewing. If you think and you start the process already thinking, I am not good enough, that's what's going to happen. Unfortunately, you're going to go with the mindset that you're small. And that's really not a good mindset to be in. And I totally understand, because I was the same as well. I, especially, the LinkedIn space 2 years ago is completely different. It was just full of big presidents, big like VPs, people with huge value, and a lot of experience. And I was just there like, hi, and like, I did this in high school and all these things. But if you don't kickstart yourself and start posting, you're never going to get out there and actually give it your all and try, right? And I see Robert mentioned, do you know that only 1% of LinkedIn's users actually post content? 100%. Every time I speak to someone who is a very consistent content creator, people in their community always know them as the LinkedIn person. So a lot of times when you're in your own head and you think you're not good enough, it's only you thinking that. Even thinking about it, I never go on my phone and be like, oh, they're such a newbie. I hate their content. They don't know what they're doing, right? You're never going to think that. The most you're going to do is scroll up, really. So it's important to be positive. It's important to think, I have value to give. Remember what I said at the beginning of the call, like the webinar? What I want you to come out of this is, I have value to give. I am here for a reason, and I am here to help and support other people, and I'm capable of doing that, right? That's your mantra. I am valuable. I have value to give, right? Think about it that way. Um, and let's see. I think a lot of people were mentioning consistency was really hard for them, especially when they're keeping up with classes and extracurricular activities and LinkedIn in general. I totally understand. I also started LinkedIn when I was in college, and it was so hard to maintain college, which is like 2 full-time jobs, LinkedIn, which is like a part-time job, along with a few other things I had to do, right? It's a lot. It's really a lot. But here's an actionable thing to do is I would set up Tuesday and Thursday, because those are days that a lot of people post content, especially on LinkedIn. A lot of people view content, sorry. So I put those 2 days as when I was going to post every week. I was not going to worry about posting content any other day of the week, right? It was only those 2 days. And I just developed a habit more than anything, that this is what I was going to do. Every Tuesday, Thursday, I am going to post on this specific time, and I'm not going to worry about it again. And I would just really develop a habit, and I've been going at it for 2 years now. Every twice a week, I post now. So it's definitely developed a habit, and it started this thing of every Tuesday, Thursday, or sometime in the middle, I'm going to post. So it's something to think about in that sense, right? So also, if you think of consistency, it's important to also think about why you want to do this, because if it's just to get a job, it needs to come from a more genuine place of, I'm spreading my life to help people, and things like that. So think about that, and think about, it needs to come from a genuine place where I'm actually motivated to want to do this. And that helps with consistency. So create a calendar for yourself. Think about, I'm going to post these 2 days. I'm going to develop a habit and make sure I post. And then think about your motivation, why you want to do this. And I think if you decide to do it to help others, that's a great motivator to just pick up your phone and write something, right? It's because I want to help someone. It's because I want to express myself, all these different things. And I know consistency is hard. It's just a matter of developing a habit, right? So we have a bit of time for a few questions. So let me know in the comments with the question if you have a question, just so I can see. Um, Simran is asking, how do you know about this Tuesday and Thursday thing? A lot of research. If you go on a lot of marketing blogs, they'll always tell you the specific days based on platforms. So on YouTube, for example, it's completely different. On Facebook, it's a completely different time. But on LinkedIn, Tuesday and Thursdays are the way to go in terms of getting specific, like more people to look at your content, right? Right, and someone mentioned a lot of people mistake consistency for daily posting. Many should understand that posting valuable content once a week is very okay. I totally agree. Consistency doesn't have to be as consistent as you think. It's just a matter of having a long-term overview that is consistent, right? So it doesn't have to be you posting every 2 to 3 days or anything of that sort. It's just a matter of being consistent, and people recognize and remember you for a long time, right? That's consistency, having a long term view. And it took me, I would say, a year to start getting some traction on LinkedIn because I was being consistent. So never think, okay, I've been doing this for a month, it's over, it didn't work out for me. It's important to have a long term overview, right? Because that's going to help you the most. Someone had an interesting question about like how I approach content creation, but do you have separate days for post creation and content posting? This isn't like, well, I'll tell you what I do and then tell you how to go about it yourself. But essentially, with me, I write from a place of passion. I write from a place of, this is making me emotional. I don't know what to do, etc. That's when I best express myself. But that's how I work the best. It's a matter of understanding, like, this is how I work best, or this is how I best approach myself. If you find that it's easier for you to take a bunch of bulk content and to just schedule it or post it specifically whenever you can, then go for it. But essentially, with me, it comes from I'm a better writer when I'm emotional and I'm super invested in what I'm writing, right? So think about that for yourself. How do you best write? How do you best post? And then that's that for you, to be honest. So it's not a yes or no question in general, it's a matter of what works best for you. And right, one thing I really want to focus on before we close up for a bit is, okay, you're posting content and you've developed a personal brand. You know what you want out of life now, and you've developed some form of consistency when it comes to your content, and things are doing well. Now what? What can I do to get opportunities, right? How can I get a job from content creation? How can I get opportunities from content? And again, it depends on your goals. Because if you're job searching, it's totally different than when, for example, you're trying to be a speaker, or you're building a business or something of that sort. It's totally different depending on that. But a few things you can do is start thinking about your content as a differentiator. So, one thing I did when I was job searching is on my resume, if it was a social media job or something related to content or my content, um, I would write on my resume content creator on LinkedIn, and I would write how many views I got. And it doesn't have to be just if you are a social media person, like someone going into a social media job. Maybe if you're posting about tech, you can mention my tech tips are I'm a content creator for tech on LinkedIn. Here's the link, or here's how many views I got. Boom. One thing that differentiates you completely, like just from the get-go on your resume, right? So think about, like, what can I do to differentiate myself? And a funny bit is, when I started creating content on LinkedIn, I met a LinkedIn recruiter at a conference a few weeks after I started, and I literally just went to them and I was like, I create content on your platform, I love your content, I love your platform. This is actually how many views I've been getting, so I'm quantifying as well my impact on the platform. So think about, okay, If I'm creating content, I'm getting a certain amount of views. It's pretty high because that's how LinkedIn works. You get an insane amount of reach. How can I use this to my advantage, right? So think about that. It's an incredible, really an incredible benefit for you. It's not as small as you think, and you don't have to be a huge influencer to make use of it to your advantage, right? The nice thing also about content creation is you are mass networking. So you don't have to make a list of people and make sure to check up on them every few months. Of course, do that. But what I'm trying to say is once you have content, people will always remember you. You're popping on their newsfeed twice a week or once a week, and people are always going to be keeping you in mind if an opportunity arises because you have a consistent personal brand. If you are someone always posting about data science, someone's going to pop up and be like, oh, I have a data science opportunity. Opportunities come to you as opposed to you having to apply. So if you have a consistent personal brand and you are always growing your network with the relevant right people, people will come to you with those opportunities, which is why it's important to be consistent, but also very specific about what your goal is. So if your goal is to get a job, be very consistent in writing about your soft and hard skills with stories or actual demonstrations of things that you've built, if you're a tech person, for example. But that is something to keep in mind. This is a mass networking tool with a lot of power, right? I'm really getting hyped speaking about this. I love personal branding so much. Um and yeah, just if you have a consistent audience and some people are starting to tune in very consistently, if you're developing a network with people who can get you opportunities, so if you're a speaker, for example, people at conferences, if you are a job seeker, recruiters and hiring managers in your specific field, I would honestly just put up a post and mention I'm looking for a job. It's been tough, but I am pulling through and I am helping my community through it as well. But I really need a job. If you have a job, let me know. I would put it more professionally, of course, but it's totally okay for you to be honest and direct with your audience, right? There were so many times I was just broken and I would mention to people, I'm really struggling right now. I'm trying to find a job. If anyone has opportunities, I am a dedicated graduate, right? So that's what I would do. And people would reach out to me, recruiters and people, they would mention, oh, check our jobs. I can refer you. It's so important to be direct with people. Otherwise, no one is going to help you, right? If you don't tell people I'm struggling, please help, it's really tough for people to know how they can help you. And I think when you're a job seeker and you're kind of consumed with your problem, which is totally valid with everything going on, you start to think people can read your mind. Like, why aren't they helping me? They should be helping me, right? Be direct with people, right? I remember I did a speaking gig, I think 2 years ago almost now at Microsoft. And I was just open with my audience. I was like, I'm up here speaking about personal branding, but I want to work in tech. And everyone here works in tech. Let me know if anyone can help, or I want to work at Facebook and Google. Let me know. And literally on the spot, a recruiter came up, like put her hand up and was like, "Oh, I can get you referrals if you're looking for help." Because I was open about the help I needed. So treat your content like that since everything is digital, and make sure that you are specific about what it is you want, right? And last tip I have, when you're creating content, you stop needing to introduce yourself as much. So I remember when I was job searching, what I would do is I would connect with hiring managers that I'm going to be interviewing with, for example, and then telling them, like, oh, I'm so excited for our interview on Tuesday. Please feel free to check out my content before we go. And they would always check my content and see it on their newsfeed before their interview. And then they knew exactly who I was. The interview was a lot more detailed. They already had a good impression of me and my story. They knew a lot more about me than just from my resume. So your personal brand is really a pillar to your resume and networking. It's an added bonus with everything going on. It's the way you differentiate yourself. It's the way that you can stand out from hundreds of people who are not doing what you are doing. So I remember someone earlier in the webinar said, I'm against 1,000 people also creating content. You're not. What you're doing is incredible. The value you have to add is incredible, and you just need to believe in yourself. You just need to believe that you can do this and really believe that you have value to give and create strategies based on that. Because unfortunately, if you create a bubble for yourself and you think I'm not good enough, then you will not be good enough, unfortunately. And it's this mindset, right? So it's so important to think I am good enough. I will use this to my advantage. I will be more resourceful. And like my beautiful friend Blessing on LinkedIn always says, it's about making your floors into ceilings. It's about being resourceful for what you have. And when you are saying no to creating content and creating a personal brand, you are essentially throwing an entire bit of resource that will really help you stand out. This isn't like a small thing that will not be helpful. This will change your life. Like, personal branding changed my life, y'all. It really did. I'm not exaggerating when I say this was a small part of my life or anything. It single handedly increased my chances for my job search. It built my entire business on it. It's built my speaking engagements as well. And you need to take the leap and be more resourceful. Think about strategies. If you think if you feel like, oh, I don't have what it takes, I'm not resourceful, you are not thinking hard enough, my friend. You need to think crazy, do everything possible, have the best resume, have an insane interview strategy as well. On top of it, your branding, people know who you are when you go into an interview. You need to do everything, community, everything. And you need to be resourceful in all capabilities, right? And we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. You know, I was in a really dark place while I was job searching. You can see it in my previous video here on LinkedIn when I was going through my rejection letters and rating them. But I was in a dark place. And it's important to persevere and think of your value and think about what you have to bring to the table and go ham with it. Just go crazy with it. Use all strategies. Make sure everything is perfect and really use your personal brand in your favor. Right? Anyways, I have talked a lot, and that last bit was just me going like, "Yeah, you can do it, y'all." So we'll take some time for questions because it's also the end of the webinar almost, which is really sad. I've had a lot of fun. um, so make sure that you leave some questions, and let me see if there was maybe any question. This is a really good question. I actually get asked this a lot. Should my first post be an introduction that I started a personal brand? What type of content will I be posting? That's a really good question, and I'll just give you my perspective. Everyone is free to do whatever they want, of course. This is your personal brand. You take hold of all of that, right? But essentially, your personal brand is you. It's just you're kind of compacting it into a small, easily understood thing, right? And something clear, like a plan for you to kind of follow. So, in my opinion, I wouldn't go about saying, oh, this is my personal brand. This is when I'm going to start posting, because the people who see your first post aren't essentially going to see your next one either. So I would honestly just go deep and see what happens, like jump into the deep end and see what happens. Um but yeah, that's my answer to that. I hope I answered your question. And another question from Atsir: how do you use your personal brand for entrepreneurship effectively? Really good question, and that's essentially what I'm doing right now. It's a matter of using your story, because essentially selling yourself um, is entrepreneurship. You're selling a service or a product. When you're creating content and building a brand around your business, you're kind of leveraging your personal brand to get business success, right? So that's just something to keep in mind. And you need to think about, how does my personal brand fit into my business? Is there a link? If so, how can I use my story to kind of help my business grow? Because my story is what this business runs on, right? I hope that also answered your question. I'm trying to get through as much as possible. Jordan asks a really good question, which is, I love being a voice for the voiceless, which is awesome, and allocating resources for others. I'm really kind and transparent and have persevered a lot. How do I make this a niche and create content if I'm not an expert? I started creating content when I was 21. I was not an expert in anything. You don't have to be an expert to start. That's what I want you to keep in mind. It's in general, my strategy for my entire life has just been, okay, let me throw myself into the deep end and see what happens with literally everything. Um, so that's how I always recommend people go about it. Throw yourself and see what happens. And it's a matter of, like I said, it's a process. You are always going up. You're always evolving with the content you are creating. So you do not have to be an expert to start. And how you make your niche is just sharing your story and trying to craft it in a way that has not been done before. So a lot of people were not speaking about rejection. That's what I started writing about. Write about like what work you've been doing, what has really made a difference in you understanding like this is what you wanted to do, for example. There's so much ways you can go about this. But I would start by storytelling and seeing what sticks with other people as well, because you can craft your niche all you want. You can craft something out of your niche, but if it doesn't resonate with an audience, it's tough, right? That's not going to get you anywhere. It needs to resonate with who's reading. So, a big part of this is just trying and seeing what resonates with other people. Yeah. Let me see. I don't see any other questions, I think. But Martin says, I'm starting my final year at San Jose State University. Good luck, Martin. I think it's really tough for students right now. So keep your head strong and keep positive as well. And I love the personal brand that Martin has built specifically. You should all follow him on LinkedIn. Martin's great. If anyone has any last minute questions, please put them in the chat. I'm trying to find. Ooh, we need. This is a super good question. How do you get past the fear of judgment and failure in posting your first post on LinkedIn? So, what I always say, and I think I did this already in the webinar, but you never go through your LinkedIn and, oh, this is a really silly post. I didn't want to read that. I don't think I've ever done that before personally. So it's actually really I there's nothing to be worried about. LinkedIn in general is a really nice community in general, very positive. And I know it's scary because it's more of a professional environment, right? And I remember just being in a workplace with people who are older than me or is already really scary, right? But it's a matter of thinking about your goal as well and being motivated towards that. Because I don't want to say, oh, there's no fear or like there's no judgment or failure at all in life, right? I would not want to look my audience in the eye while I'm saying that because it's not true. Um, you know, it's tough, and I want you to think about like why you're doing this more than anything. Why do you want to post? What about you is special? Because you do have something special. And why do you want to share this so passionately, right? And that is going to get you through the toughness of it all, right? But in general, I want to say there's not much to worry about. The community is super positive, everyone's super nice. Um, and you'll never know what happens unless you try, right? Well, you'll always look back and think, oh, I wish I did that. I wish I took that leap. So it's a matter about motivating yourself, thinking about like, I need to do this. This is what I need to do. I'm going to do this regardless of everything going on. So, also, someone here agrees with me and says, I never thought bad of anyone's post on LinkedIn, to be honest. That I've always thought badly about mine. See, so we're always critical about ourselves and not other people. So a lot of the time we're in our own heads and saying like, oh, I wish I could write as good as this person when they're probably also thinking I write really badly. So it's a matter of just being positive and just pushing through the fear. Um, and just no worries. No one is judgmental or rude on the platform, to be honest. And Gregory asks, when you want to tell a story on LinkedIn, do you always need to think about your audience first before even writing one? Or is it unnecessary? Huh. I always say 100% always think about your audience because they're the people who are going to be reading your content, right? And essentially, if it doesn't resonate with them, it's not going to spread, essentially. So you need to think about your audience and what you can give your audience in terms of value more than anything, I always say. And I think it's finding a healthy balance between what you like to write about and what your audience likes to read. But if one of those things are missing, if you don't like what you write, or if your audience doesn't like your doesn't resonate with your writing, then there's a bit of a bridge that needs to be kind of met in the middle. Ooh, this is such a good question. What are some challenges you had when building your personal brand? I think just at the beginning, I really struggled with understanding what I have to offer, and what value I had to give. But that's just a part of the process, right? It's just a matter of evolving. Again, here we're all here to evolve, we're all here to grow and learn, especially in adversity. So it's just a matter of thinking about, like, okay, I'm growing, it's okay if I'm taking my time, or it's okay if my personal brand isn't solid yet. Maybe one of the things we spoke about is kind of missing, but it's essentially just about being positive and saying, like, okay, I'll keep pushing through, I'll keep trying, and I'll keep trying to understand what my audience likes as well. It's a part of the process, right? Basant, how do you take time to fully recover and disconnect from thinking about job searching? Thank you so much. Uh, Hey, Marlene, I hope you're well. I always see you supporting me on LinkedIn, so I'm really thankful for that. And it's tough. Wow. You know, having left the job search and still like working on my business now, I'm always connected somehow to my work, and I'm always thinking about, okay, what am I going to do? And this doesn't just have to do with job search. I think right now in general it's just really hard to disconnect from our circumstances and disconnect in general with everything that is going on. Like, it's just hard to not be in control and always be thinking about, like, what do I need to do next? I need to do something, I need to support something. I think it's just a matter of thinking about, this is what I can control and this is what I cannot control. And it's important to let go of what you cannot control. As hard as it's so hard to let go of that. But if you think, okay, I've done what I can today, I've put in 5 applications, I've networked so much, I leave it because I can't do anything else today and I need to rest. And I think a lot of job seekers will always think, okay, um, I need to spend my pie chart of time just completely working hard because that is what's working hard. But if you don't add in sleep, if you don't add in rest, if you don't add in mental health space, you are not going to be able to work hard. So think about it as an investment in you and a way to positively impact yourself, right? As opposed to just working hard and not putting in any time for yourself, because then you're just going to crash and then you won't actually have time to job search anymore. So you need to find that balance, even though it's super hard, I know. um Oh, this is a really good question. So, someone asked, I have both English and French speaking connections, and I'm always confused about what language I should use. It really depends. I think, Khautari, you're from Morocco, if I'm not mistaken, and if you feel like your audience, like you need to get a job in Morocco, then I would suggest writing in French, if that is, from what I understand, of course, the native language. If you want to get a job in Morocco and your goal with content is to get a job there, then I would post in French, to be honest. If your goal is to get a job abroad, perhaps, or find more opportunities, or there's another goal that requires English speakers, then I would work with that. But essentially, community, if you are ever concerned with, like, what should I do? Should I do this or that? Think about your audience and your goal. It needs to all be in sync, and you need to think about, okay, this is my goal. This is what I'm going to do, right? So just think about. I want you all to spend some time thinking about what your purpose is, what your talents are, what your story is, because this isn't just applicable to your specific job search. It's applicable to life. When you're selling yourself, it relates to your talents and your story and your experiences, and all these different things. And it also helps you in making decisions, right? So if you ever think about, okay, is there anything I need to do now? Is this what I'm supposed to do? Is it this? You think about, like, who am I? What is my purpose? What is my story? How does this work with that? It makes things a lot more easier in general in that sense. But yeah, unfortunately, we've ran out of time for the webinar, which makes me super sad because this was super fun. It was nice to have a group that was so engaged. I love you guys so much, and I really, 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 really hope the webinar was helpful to you and this helped you become more resourceful towards your specific job search. And in general, in creating opportunities for yourself, right? So I do hope you enjoyed the webinar and I hope it was helpful. And like we mentioned, if one thing you want to do from now on is to add value to your specific communities, make sure you share this specific link and what you learned from the webinar through your LinkedIn posts, and to just spread the love and spread the love with your audience. Personal branding in general is a very hard topic to speak about because no one really knows what it is. So you'll be adding never before seen value to your network, and it's just something to try and process and all. And like I mentioned before, it's been a tough year. It's been hard, and that's okay. But what I want you to keep in mind when you're job searching, when you have problems, when you're working towards something, do not let your circumstances feel like they are defining you. What's out of your control is out of your control, and you just gotta let it go, right? Let it go. So just keep positive, and it's okay to not be okay, but it's also important to put effort in to be positive. So it's a matter of not letting your problems consume you, but also understanding that you are a human that has emotions and needs to let it out, right? So that is something to keep in mind for the next few weeks. Fingers crossed things get better for everyone in the chat. I saw some really upsetting comments, and I'm sorry. Everyone's circumstances are bad, but positivity, everybody. And just look at the comments really quickly. I'm so happy to see such good feedback that everyone thought it was really helpful. That's really nice to hear. And yeah, I love you all so much, and I'm wishing everybody the best. And just remember, you can find job opportunities on Basant Blast, my company page, and I also post every two times a week or so on my page with stories and support there. And also here on YouTube, I have videos on rejection and job search and all kinds of topics that I think will also be helpful. I'm a lot more funnier here on YouTube, so I would suggest you check out my videos. And if you did enjoy the webinar, make sure you specifically subscribe and you like the video. And yeah, if you ever need support, just let me know. I'm always here. And I love you guys so much. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you for the support. And yeah, love you guys.